not stressing about having to do those.
And I'm so petty, I'm like, screenshot, because you had your little, it's cute,
Okay.
very cute. How y'all doing?
Welcome, everyone. I have 5 o'clock, so we're going to call ourselves to order. I'm ready.
Everyone, join me in a moment of silence. Want to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Dr. O'Neill,
Present.
Mr. Heater,
Present.
Dr. Bales, Mrs. Barnes-Griffin, Mr. Irvin,
Present.
and Mr. Lowe is out west, so we will proceed in his absence. Do we have an update, Dr. Kay?
Yes, I do have a few updates. Summer camps are going really well this summer. We kicked off many in June, still are running some in July. Last night, Channel 13 had a video about Camp Adventure for the month of July, so I'll be sure to send you the link. It was a nice video that they did. Thursday, I'm really off this week. I keep saying I'm going to be gone tomorrow. On Thursday, I'll be at the Indiana Black Expo, and I've been asked to serve on a panel with superintendents, and so I'm looking forward to that meeting. Our construction projects, Dia and Brad are going to have hard hats that they wear constantly, but our construction projects are still going well. We're promised that, they're going to be meeting timelines. And Brad and Dia just keep meeting and monitoring and keeping our fingers crossed. When you have that many projects going on, we feel good about where we are, but some of the buildings still look pretty messy, I would say. Our bands, you have a schedule for band competitions or contests. We kick off this Saturday night at Centerville High School. The contest begins at 7 and we perform at 8:59. So if you like to stay up late and watch that will be this Saturday. We've been busy gearing up for a new year. I said, what do I give for an update? We're all so busy, but knowing what all to talk about, there's just a lot happening behind the scenes. We have registration dates in August 2nd and 3rd for our families. We've decided to push it back a week because so many of our families wait until right before it's time to register. So we thought, let's just set them and make our schools open and available. And that way, we hope we don't have too many long lines the first day. So on August 2nd, it's from 10 to 3, and August 3rd, it's from 1 to 6. But parents and families can register online. I know Cindy and the team are helping folks with that. They can come to this building if they need assistance, and once our school's open, they can go into any of the schools and register and receive assistance if they need it. This Thursday, we also have Fan Fest at Southside from 1 to 5. That's a great time for families. There are bounce houses and food, but then they also can have health screenings and vaccines and physicals, everything else you need to get ready for the school year. So we encourage our families to attend.
So Fan Fest is at Southside Middle, 1 to 5 on Saturday?
On Thursday. 1 to 5 on Thursday.
This Thursday?
This Thursday, 1 to 5. And then just on a personal note, on Sunday, I became a grandmother again. So Jim, you'll remember when we first met, I kept my phone out because I was expecting to hear about my first one. And this is now number 4. So
Wow.
Time changes quickly in 3 years. Christmas will look very different this year at our house with all those little ones.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
Wonderful. Is this, which son?
My middle son, Mark, who's a teacher, and his wife, Abby.
Okay, so Mark and Abby, Saturday?
Sunday.
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 And name?
Joshua James Kwiatkowski.
And I appreciate you working me into it.
That's why I said, I was like, there's no one like Jim, so we have to have a James with this child.
Well, we'll have to get a gift card to Joshua James. Yeah, with an esteemed name like that.
That's right. We hope he's going to be a judge someday.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Anything else?
I think
I
that's
know
it.
what I wanted to talk about a bit. I saw yesterday on social media the award of the grant from the 238 grand. What was
Yes,
that?
it's called the 3E grant, so engage. Now, what are the 3 E's?
Brad, do you know what the three E's
He
are?
won't, yes, the 3 E's with that grant.
Engineering.
No, it's not engineering either,
It
but
has to do with.
3 E's because
project.
it's all about career exploration.
There we go.
And so we are in partnership with Project Leadership. We didn't get the entire grant request, but we feel that it was a great project that we put together. So the Ball Brother Foundation will plan to help with some of it. And I just submitted a proposal with the George and Francis Ball Foundation for our high school can. And so we believe the proposal we put in will be able to be fully funded. So we're excited about that.
Great. And then we have a meeting later this week on the grant for the SIG grant, correct?
That one's going to be postponed. The DOE needed to postpone it, so we'll get some information out to
Okay,
you.
so I do not need to hold that on my calendar.
Right. It's very rarely you get some extra time back.
Okay, thank you.
And it's also, if you recall, we wrote for the Promise Neighborhood Grant and did not receive that. But the U.S. Department of Ed just put out an RFP for that proposal. And so we'll be working closely with the George and Francis Ball Foundation to get a proposal and Ball State University to resubmit for that.
And that's due September 1st?
That's when it's due to Ball State,
Due to Ball.
September 1st,
And
yes.
that's the $30 million grant?
Yes.
Okay. So for those here this evening and those watching, this is, I feel cautiously optimistic about our chances this time. I mean, we were scored really well the last time on that grant, and I think everybody has learned and moved forward. So we're very, very, very hopeful that we're able to move forward and be a recipient of that grant. Now, a positive note that some of you may know, Muncie was selected as a Strive community recently, which is, I think, consistent with what our original proposal was in that grant, correct?
Yes, yes.
So that opens up MCS to a broad array of resources and data that will hopefully be of assistance to us as we focus on academic achievement and betterment. So anything further?
Well, and Allison's joined us tonight. It's her first week. And now she's put 2 late nights in. Yesterday was day 1 for Allison, who's our volunteer wellness coordinator. We laughed. We gave her as long a title as I think I have, so we both are getting used to that. We had a community engagement council meeting last night, and Allison joined us. And then tonight she's here for our board meeting.
So welcome, Allison. I'm glad you're back from Ireland, safe and sound. I heard your family had a great time, and so we are very excited to have you with us. And everybody know Allison? So, Al, you want to say a few words? You want to introduce yourself?
I think I know most of you, that probably are on this one, that I need to familiarize myself with. So Allison Clark, I've been in the Muncie community, came as a Ball State in 1953, and I just stayed ever since. So finding my way into different parts of the community, mostly social service. So I am now the volunteer program manager, wellness coordinator for the schools, and I've got 2 days in, and I'm on information overload. So if I speak gibberish to you, just trying to learn, what I can do to help the schools. I've already got plans to meet all the see what we can do to help them and what programs they want to implement this year. And trying to make sure that we have volunteers ready to go.
Well, Allison, I personally, speaking for myself, feel very fortunate to have you with us. And if there's anything that the board can do for you, let us know. So, welcome. Anything additional, Dr. Kay?
I think that's it.
So the other interesting fact about Allison is she is from Indiana's Twin Cities, Shirley and Wilkinson. And I laugh because I have a friend from Shirley, and there's not a lot in Shirley. So, okay, well, we are on to the consent agenda. Within the consent agenda, I want to recognize a retirement, and it's a loss to all of us and to Longfellow particularly. Tara Kovalt, elementary teacher for 24 years, who has elected to retire. We have some other departures that are set out in your notes, and we want to thank all those individuals for their service to MCS and our students. We also have a number of hires and recommendations, both certified and support, that Dia, I know you've been working on. How is it going, hiring-wise? Where are we?
It's going well. We still have 23 certified positions to place from elementary, middle school, and high school. And support staff, I know the directors are working with principals, and so am I, and we're checking that track and applications daily.
Okay. Is there anything that you need from the board in terms of filling either certified or support positions that you feel don't have at your disposal right now?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I would add one. We need to get our comp team together to talk about support staff and extracurricular, the ECA schedule. I think that could help a little bit with some of our
Okay.
instructional
If you
assistants.
folks can pull that together, I'm going to take a pass. Just still recovering a little bit. So, anything else? Just out of curiosity, what are you hearing about salaries? Anything in terms of our salaries?
As I've conducted second interviews, everyone seemed really excited about the salary, and for those special areas as well. We recommendation for a math teacher, and so some of those special areas, we have people, I know music, we've been looking at music, and we have 3 new applicants. So it's really exciting that people are,
Okay.
the information's out there and they're coming to us.
Is everybody aware of Kenna?
I shared that information
So
today.
Kenna Jones took a job outside of education, I guess, within the last couple of days. We received notice of that today, so we wish Kenna the very best. And it's difficult timing, but we'll sort through it. So, anything further in the consent agenda? Any changes, questions, amendments, anything from anybody? If not, would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll show the consent agenda passed. Mr. Jerome, the financial report.
Thank you. Presented in your board packet is the monthly financial report for the actual results of the month of June. Obviously, in 2 weeks, I'll have a lot more financial information for you as we do the 2023 budget. The best news, of course, we always like to report is we are still receiving our state basic grant each month. We're still expecting to receive almost $42 million in that state basic grant. With the funding formula that I have seen so far this summer, it's still looking like we would still receive a slight increase in revenue next year for 2023, even with, you can play around with the projection model that they put out there online for us. And so the revenue we still expect to be pretty strong in that $42 to $43 million range. Our cash balance at the end of June for all our funds in the checkbook was over $36 million. That's certainly the highest it's ever been recently in the last 4 years. Still projecting to be in a surplus position in the education fund by the end of this year as well. I always like to report that we've now paid we're paying back the state loan at $50,000 a month. That's now, we paid that down to $10,800,000. So we've actually paid $1,200,000 towards that loan already. So one of the big wild cards, of course, is always the property taxes and how we're going to collect that. We did collect a little over $6 million in the first 6 months this year, right in the month of May and June. So still expecting to receive maybe just under 11 million for the whole year in property taxes. So once again, I'll have a few more items to present with the budget in 2 weeks. Just one final comment about operation fund. That still remains kind of tight on spending as we knew. Still expecting to spend the 12.6 million, but in that fund, and we'll stick with that appropriation for this year. So other than that, I think that's all I have to present on the financial report.
Any questions for Mr. Jerome?
I just got a real quick question on the property tax income. How does that projection compare to last year, the year before, that kind of thing? Where are we trending with that?
It's really funny because it's kind of stable. I mean, it's the previous year, I think if this year we're about 10.7, last year was 10 million, so it was slightly up. The year before was, I think, 10.3. It's been just above 10 million like the last 4 years. It's just the tax cap has kind of continued to impact that.
So the 10.7 is where we are this year in collections.
That's where I think we'll finish.
But as I understand the pressure exerted by the tax cap, that has to do with the formula by which our operations expenditures and levy is capped at a certain level.
Right.
And that is separate and apart from property tax collections, correct?
Right.
So when we think about the pressure on the operations fund, and that's not going to let up.
That's not going to let up.
And we think about that in terms of property tax collections and revenue, that's somewhat of a misnomer. I mean, it's a red herring, because the statute that's out there caps our expenditures in the operations fund regardless of we collect 50 million in property tax revenue or 15 million in property tax revenue, correct? It caps it as a certain percentage of.
Well, right, it's capped. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of the levy, it's capped.
It's
right.
based on a cap on related to assessed values of property.
That's exactly right. You're only going to collect whatever the cap is. That's a cap number.
So, one of the things that I was talking to Dr. K about was means by which and maximizing the means by which we are able to properly shift certain expenditures to the education fund away from the operations fund. And, I know we've talked about that. One of the examples was the director of dining services. I think, you taking on that role and wearing that hat, not the chef's hat per se. But so if you would, over the course of the next 6 months or so, if there are means available to this board by which we can reduce pressure on the operation fund and whatever statutory tools are available to us, let's chat about those.
Sure.
And I have a couple in mind. Public safety is one of them.
Sure.
So just preparing the board for that discussion, that this is not sustainable. And for those who are watching, this is not sustainable. This cap, as it continues to cycle down, as long as enrollments remain stable, we will have pressures brought to bear, my guess is within the next 12 to 24 months, by which hard decisions have to be made, absent finding.
And when Brad talks about it's been stable, so it's been, if if I recall, it's been stable about, we've brought for 10 years about the same amount in. When you think about salaries and the price, salaries go up, your utilities go up. So all those costs continue to rise, but yet.
Well, the cap is inverse to that. The cap is pushing down.
Right.
And inflation's pushing up.
That's right.
And that's not sustainable.
Right.
I think the important thing to note is that, I mean, we all think that that number should go up because of assessed values and valuation. The problem is the cap.
Correct.
And so the only way that's really going to change is if we get new properties paying taxes,
Right.
new businesses paying taxes. Because anybody's house whose value goes up because of the cap, they're not paying really.
Right.
I mean, they're paying a little bit.
The cap protects the
But,
homeowner.
but it protects, so, I mean, I think I think you're right, Jim. I mean, the pressure's just not gonna go away, unless we can answer the question of getting a lot more properties on the tax rolls, which is really where the number's gonna change a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
and one of the things that you will hear from the legislature is you need to go to your local municipal governing units and talk about contributions out of TIF. That's one potential tool.
right.
Now that's charged with all sorts of other issues because they're feeling similar financial pressures and trying to meet budgets as well. But there are other, I just want to understand, I mean, you've got my attention. And I know you've been laboring at that for a while, and believe me, you have it. And I think, whatever tools we have available to us, let's explore those over the course.
I can give you one example of something we're going to institute this year is like, in part of having our audit and discussions with them and having a scrutiny of our food service fund, realizing that we can start charging our food service fund the custodial and maintenance expenses for keeping those areas clean, because those had all been assigned to the operation fund.
Correct.
So that was one thing that we had discovered. We could start splitting that out on the billing and start doing that going forward. So,
Well, and I think nickels and dimes and quarters and dollars that we're able to save, those are all helpful. But again, we are forestalling a reckoning, and I want to be prepared to deal with that
Sure.
as that occurs, because absent something fundamentally changing in the base, this will be a relentless fight. And the vast majority of citizens, we need to educate the citizenry over the course of the next year as to what that all means, because education of, our kids, our students deserve to receive the services which students in every other school corporation rightly receive. And we need to be in a position to provide those in a way that is both prudent and fiscally responsible, but we will reach a point where there is no more cutting to be done. So, and I say that not largely for the benefit of those watching this evening. And Andy, I mean, I think preparing to start thinking about educating the broader community over the course of the next 12 months, where we are and where we're headed, that's going to be important, I believe. Dave, I know that you're out there and you hear people, and am I right in assuming that what we're talking about here is lost on huge chunks of the community?
Totally, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else think that this is a fact that's broadly known?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, even after hearing you, when we talk about a cap, we're talking about the individual taxpayers' property taxes have been capped at basically 1%, something like that. And so I know the assessed value on my house went up, probably just like everybody else did. And so that, if I'm hearing correctly, that has just a very, very minute effect on the overall picture of how much money we receive based upon that.
And the cap has trended downward for as long as you've been here, right? Did we have 1 year where it didn't?
Depends on if I look with the Baker Tilly projections, they're showing that it can go up. It's been around $10 million, is what the cap is.
We're 12.6 this year, right?
That's because we put some other,
Not quite that high this year.
we can take 15% from our education fund and move it over, so that helps us get up.
We budgeted 12.6 for operations this year, right?
Oh, the appropriation,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that's the number, yes.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the tax cap.
No, no.
12.6, yes. 12.6 is what we said we would spend.
But we took, a portion of that is coming from the education fund. 15% or so.
Yeah, we still do that transfer, yes. We still transfer revenue, we still transfer funds from education to operation. And we do it right to 15%, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any additional questions regarding that? I'm sorry for the digression, but I think it's important to begin laying the groundwork for some more serious reckonings that are going to be facing all of us and the community. So with that, would entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Okay, we'll show that passed. Construction manager for MCS Bond Project 2022.
Yeah, thank you. This particular application of a construction manager would be as a construction manager as advisor. And CORE is the one we've recommended. CORE is the current one that we have right now for Westview, Southview, and ECA. For this particular project, since they would be just the advisor, they would not be the one as the constructor. So that would be Muncie Schools going out and getting the bids for this project. They would simply be our advisor for the project. And we had really good success with them so far with our current projects. That's why we wanted to bring them on board for this project. The timeline for this project, we had a preliminary meeting with them a few days ago, and the preliminary timeline would still be to sell bonds in the third or fourth quarter of 2022 and you'd start taking your bids about that same time also. So you can hit the ground running as soon as probably the football season would be over next year. So, or this year, 2022. And
Okay.
so it's pretty exciting project, and CORE would be the ones helping us with it.
Okay. Any questions regarding the approval of the CM for the bond project? Any questions? Would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Okay. That passes. Okay. Brad, anything further from your shop?
I do not think so. Like I said, Dee and I were at all the construction meetings today, and we will continue to report back every 2 weeks when we have our board meetings. And the buildings are really transforming, and that's very exciting. So.
Good, good. We're on to dialogue of the board and future recommendations. Anybody have anything? So I have a couple of thoughts, and they may be crazy.
Oh, dear.
We'll start with the ones that I think are just kind of fun. I wonder if there's an opportunity to use our new brands and come up with something that we can give to each grade level that gives 5 tips for success that we laminate and hand to the parents and the families and the kids. Something basic. Bearcats, Bearcats read, Bearcats, I don't know, come up with something that, and, there's these things that show the 5 things to do in kindergarten that are, or maybe it's 6 or 7 bite-sized things. And that may be dumb, but it's a thought, every little thing. Secondly, a larger potential issue that I would really welcome folks' thoughts on, but it's come to, it's been part of the discussions, is the potentially adverse effect of letter grades, particularly at the elementary level. And I know, we've discussed this generally, but is there benefit to, certainly at the elementary level, maybe even middle school, moving away from traditional A, B, C, D, F letter grades into something more meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, not meeting expectations? And the reason I asked this is it was brought to my attention that, this is natural, that parents and caregivers of our children, when they see their kids getting A's and B's, or even C's perhaps, the perception is things are going well. And then the child student takes I read 3 and doesn't pass. Is there a false sense of assurance given by a letter grading system? And I don't know, the principal with whom I spoke about this indicated there is. If others, feel strongly about this, that parents see their children's grade cards when they come home and their A's and B's and things are going great. But those A's and B's are indicative of an inflation that has occurred grade-wise, not only at elementary schools across this country, but everywhere. Does that grade inflation then have ultimately an adverse effect? A sense of security that undermines the urgency of what we're doing. So I welcome that for a discussion if anybody wants to grab onto it. Maybe it's not a discussion for this evening, and there's probably an argument to be made on the other side of this, but it is out there.
I would agree with that. I just wonder, is it possible, this may be too much work, I don't know, is it possible to do a both and rather than just either or? I don't know what the matrix would be in terms of what does an A mean if beside it has a percentage or it has a number or something that gives a little bit more detail, maybe tied to what type of class it is. Maybe the class gets ranked at a certain level, that kind of thing. I don't know. But I agree. If you've got an AB student, the perception certainly would be that they're doing fine and that they should pass these tests. At least that's what I would be thinking. I'm so old that my kids are old, so. But I would think that would be an issue if I had children. Of course, I've got grandkids coming up, but yeah.
Brittany, you live in that world.
I definitely have thoughts on it. I don't disagree. I think it's one of many antiquated things in our education system that need to be reevaluated. When you're talking about comparing it with like success on testing, that's a hard nut to crack because you have some kids who just aren't good test takers and they do in fact meet the expectation and that whole thing. And the test itself is a whole nother antiquated ball of wax that we can't undo. But I definitely think, like you said, especially at the elementary level, to sort of reevaluate what success looks like on paper for our kiddos and helping them and their family understand that we really want a reflection of the whole child's ability, not just a pass-fail situation. Because, yeah, it definitely does give a false sense of hope if you have an AB student to assume that they're going to be reading at grade level.
Right. Latasha?
I was just going to ask, do we have any schools in surrounding districts that are looking at this, Leanne, or something alternative?
Yeah, there are several districts that that have moved to like standards-based grading. So they'll list different standards, and then, if you meet or exceed that standard, So I would say that just takes a lot of education of your families to understand. Now you have a list of different standards that kids are required to be learning, and what does that mean with different marks by that? So, yeah.
Yeah, and so I pulled out my kindergarten report card from 1970-71 at Winchester Village Elementary in Perry Township
Born yet.
in Indianapolis. And it had the standards based.
Did it?
Yeah.
Way back before,
back.
before they even had standards, Jim had
Yeah.
them grading it, the
Yeah,
standards.
it was, and one of the things that I got,
Yes and N's.
one of the things
Yes.
I got, didn't do very well at was my skipping. I was not a good skipper. I mean, I'm a hell of a skipper.
You just
Now,
But yeah, I go, what the heck? I thought I was a decent skipper. So I was substandard on my skipping, but I digress. We have an attendance issue, clearly. And so if you are working on, and maybe I'm totally in left field, but if you wake up and you go, oh, my child is getting A's and B's, and so maybe going to school today is not a big deal. And I guess, I personally feel a sense of urgency for not just where we are in this community, but where we are in a much broader sense in terms of what we owe our families and students in terms of delivery on our obligation. And I'm not certain. I think sometimes letter grading becomes a way to avoid difficult conversations. Is it?
Food for thought, since you opened the door of attendance, because that's another antiquated system. If we visit that as part of this broader discussion on grading, I would love to see us build in like mental health days for our kids that are excused, especially as we're coming out of post-pandemic life when we know it's our kids are struggling to find normalcy in school. And I know from personal experience, there are days where kids just can't, that's their job. There are days when we can't get up and adult, and we don't, because we have that luxury, and kids don't really have that. So I would love to see like some more excused days built in if we are still going to have traditional attendance as we've seen it. But I think that's part of the reason we've seen it be such a struggle.
So how would you feel about as an alternative that if we build in, call it what you will, mental health day or whatever, that on that day you come in and you go, I'm taking one of my 10 mental day, one of my 10 happiness days, call it what you will. And during that, we set up an area by which there's low stress, but learning is occurring. Just, oh, yeah, you go to this area and, we have activities set up that are not stressful. I mean, some alternative where we still have the student participating with us. I don't know what that looks like, but something that is non-stressful, that there is an opportunity for independent inquiry for the student on that day, whatever that looks like. But I mean, this is a broader, deeper discussion, but
You're opening Pandora's box, you know that.
we need to. Yeah. Pandora's
But that to me seems to be exactly the kind of thing that we need to address as we look at and utilize the grant monies that we've received for creative, innovative learning. I mean, that's our charge. So I think what you're suggesting is fine. I just not qualified. So, I mean, we got to get to Dr. K and the administrators and the teachers and say, okay, how if we had a blank wall, here are some things that could stick up there, whether they stick or not, but they have to see the same thing, right?
Yeah, well, the legislature expects us to be bold and innovative.
Right.
That was set into a series of periods, one of which was stabilization. thanks to the work of a lot of people, many of whom are in this room, that period, we are stable. They're setting aside the adverse impact of the pandemic, which is real and it is profound and it is tragic, and that's not too strong a word. What we owe, first of all, our students and their families is an education by which they can hope to function successfully as citizens and adults, having hope, having meaning, having the ability to thrive in a modern economy. And, you know, candidly, a lot of schools are not meeting that. And this country has got to focus with a sense of urgency on that. And that includes, and we're very fortunate in Muncie, we're very fortunate with our personnel, we're very fortunate with our resources, with all, you know, I feel very fortunate to be with each of you, but this is our time to move this forward academically and socially and community-wise. And I pray that we continue to have the, you know, management, the ability to manage the remnants of the pandemic. But it's, you know, I think Leanne and I, Dr. Kay and I have talked about this. We've got to show progress, and that's hard. I'm not for an instant suggesting this is an easy lift.
I don't want you to think I don't think those are good ideas. I just think
No.
those are exactly the kind of things we need to try to think about. And you know, it's just, man, there's nothing easy about it.
Do you know, so even like with this Promise Neighborhood grant or the SIG grant that we wrote, you know, so we talk about being innovative, but yet with all the federal dollars that we receive, we have to show research-based or evidence-based of what we want to do with it has made a difference. So sometimes it's hard with some of that. You know, you have to show the citing and get that approved. And so when you're being innovative, there isn't any research with it, right? So that's another balance we have. So this time they've really even tightened up that Promise Neighborhood grant, that everything that we put in has to have a high level of research with it. So that's where we're tapping into Ball State to get us some of that.
Yeah, that and the Strive Network are both going to provide resources. It doesn't have to be data from within
Right.
Muncie Community
It's
Schools.
right.
It can be nationwide. And
Right.
so, I mean, any ideas you have, anybody on this board, any idea, it can be 1 a.m. Hammer out an email. Hammer out an email. I'm looking at you, Brittany. I'm looking at you, Brittany. Nothing's off the table. Let's talk about these things, because we're in these meetings. The Educational Transformation Team on the SIG grant, we prayerfully will get an opportunity with the Promised Neighborhoods grant. Anything that you think can move the needle on the welfare of our students. This is. I mean, we have a duty. So, speaking of that, Allison, got a project.
You're not scared for real.
No, would you? And Richmond has a program. I'm sure we can do it better than Richmond.
Okay, you said that. Well,
I did.
Over the air.
Over the air. I love Richmond, but there is community-wide using volunteers to aid in lower grade reading. And volunteers, Richmond has a good program in the sense that they have consistency, you know, somebody who's going to show up at X hour on X day every day. So would you mind taking a look at Richmond Community Schools and any other schools, corporation that has a program that would provide additional resources for our kiddos to have someone to read to or with? Okay, thanks. So I apologize for belaboring all those things, but again, if you run across an article, whatever, share it. 10, 12, and Rhonda, Allison, Andy, Brad, Dia, Cindy. Anybody, wake in the middle of the night, and you see something pop up and you go, hey, that looks good. I'll send that to Jim. Go ahead. Yeah, take advantage of it. I mean, at no time in history have we had access to so much. Now, we just have to decide what in bite-sized pieces works, because the danger is you try to boil the ocean. So, okay. Anything further?
Just, I should correct, Allison, you'll really like Brad, by the way. I didn't want to make Brad feel bad. I made you feel bad, but he's a really, really nice guy. And he's really good at his job, so.
So, I saw on social media that our own
True.
Andy Klotz has a side operation where he along with one of our other employees has a beanbag toss scoring system. Is that right?
Now that you bring it up, yes.
Okay, but no, it's because you lose track of the score. You're right. Jennifer doesn't like, my wife doesn't like that at all. So now, is it available for purchase? Or is it still in a beta phase?
It's a beta. We started a Kickstarter.
Okay.
People are familiar with that, and so thanks for the plug, Jim.
Yeah.
We're almost to our goal there. And
Okay.
we will deliver product in the fall.
Great. I think that's very exciting, and so I love that, and
We'll have to bring one here and test it out, right, during a board meeting,
right?
and, yeah.
we can have the
have a
robotics.
competition.
Yeah, I want to see Jim skip anyway.
Skip and play.
I will skip and I will show you that teacher had it all wrong. Yeah, I'll stretch a little bit before. You can't skip in those loafers without some socks.
I know.
So,
Skip blisters, I know.
okay. Anything from the media tonight?
Gino, may I also, the man behind the screen, Joe, he has just been promoted as our lead technician. And so we are,
Yay!
yes. I just wanted to, we appreciate that he's on, making sure, giving us help with devices and access points and all that other fun stuff that I really don't know much about, but I pretend I do, right? Thank you,
So
Joe.
congratulations. Matt from Auxilio, right?
Yes?
Do you have anything? You don't have anything? Transportation going okay? Okay,
Got drivers?
Good.
good. Okay,
Excellent.
okay.
Good job.
If you ever have anything, let us know. Yeah, and you're welcome to stay, come for as many meetings as you like. Okay. Anything further? Okay, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Thank you.